So, once again, I'm Kumar Ramachandran, founder CEO of CloudGenix. We started this session by really talking about how we are transforming the remote office infrastructure, right? SD-WAN really, to me, is it creates a base platform, a base foundational capability. If you think about what SD-WAN is doing from a design perspective, right? Because a lot of us are architects in this room and online. Anytime you're designing a system, a complex system, which is what an enterprise WAN and enterprise branch is, you always have to solve for the weakest link, right? So in the old days, the weakest link was your WAN. Connectivity was expensive, unreliable, right? Hard to troubleshoot, and performance was variable. So then you had to go truck roll hardware, software, et cetera, onto that remote office. And hence, you had this whole hardware appliance-based model. NFV was a little bit of a Band-Aid patch in the transition. When you have a good SD-WAN solution, if you think about it, you've changed the design point for the branch. You now have a product in your branch which has changed the WAN from being the weak link, from being having poor availability, from being expensive. The moment the network becomes, let's say, an infinite resource that's highly reliable, now the design point for your brand changes. And that's why when we look at retailers who are working with us, the retail customers they were the last bastion of having servers in the store, right? Even in the previous decade when WAN optimization devices were trying to help people consolidate servers, retail servers didn't go away. They still hung tight. They hung tight because the WAN was unreliable, the WAN was expensive. So your point of sale server, it always had a backup in the branch. You look at modern point of sale systems, and the analysis that customers do, the finance you get on the WAN with CloudGenix, they trump your server's availability. So now you can actually migrate all of a sudden to SaaS in a much more powerful manner, right? And that's one example. But that is the foundational building block for thinking about the cloud-delivered branch, right? And that's why once we solve the SD-WAN problem, not just in terms of broadband versus MPLS, but really in terms of providing a full-blown networking and a broad automation framework for that part of the puzzle, that's why we ventured into building out the platform that allows you to move away from hardware and software, right? And what we have now done with this CloudBlades platform, and we showed it to you guys, really is we created the model wherein across multiple infrastructure services, all those can finally be delivered to the branch, right? Our vision for the branch is very, very simple. If you think about your iPhones, right? All of us, or many of us have an iPhone, if not an Android phone. Each of us can have a different application app on it, right? I have an iPhone, let's say Aaron has an iPhone. My fitness application, my calendaring application, my email application, they can be different from the ones, my travel application, they can be different from the ones he chooses. But because there is a development platform, I don't need to build those apps. All I do is consume those applications in a very customized manner. That is how the CloudGenix customers are actually treating their entire enterprise. So when a customer comes into our system, right, customer A comes in and says, okay, as long as I have CloudGenix for my network and my platform, I can use, let's say, Palo Alto for my security, Zoom for my collaboration, Equinix for my multi-cloud access, and in this case, PagerDuty and some ChatOps models for my operational tooling. A different customer can come in and choose a different set of services, right? Zscaler for security, RingCentral for my voice, and so on and so forth. If you think about it, right, what we're really unleashing here is a fundamentally different way to think about your branch office.
Your CloudBlade is multi-tenant, or you
That's
have
right.
separate?
The CloudBlade is natively multi-tenant, right? So it's not, we're not running individual VMs for these things. It's natively multi-tenant. It's gone through all kinds of certifications. So, like I said, some of the largest banks, retailers, everyone with all those regulatory and compliance requirements, all of them are taking advantage of it. And because the architecture is such that people can build their applications, much like I think we had some folks work with Aaron right now on some of the automation frameworks, you can actually build your own applications, right? So for instance, one of our CIOs, he loves to do a lot of automation within his environment. And I'll tell a little story to the team here. This is it's a person called Prakash Kota. He's become a great friend of CloudGenix and a personal friend now. But he drives a lot of innovation within his organization. And one of the things he drives is not only in the network across multiple parts of his organization, using a lot of RPAs, robotic process automation, and tools like that. He actually loves using Alexa as an interface to communicate back to his team. So in his staff, right, at the CIO staff, he has an Alexa sitting at the table, and he'll actually query Alexa. Hey Alexa, what were the results of automation this week? How many issues avoidance happened because of CloudGenix, for instance? And it becomes an important part of the staff meeting because you now have a set of people in the organization, in his own words, they work 365, don't take sick days, don't need time off, and they're eliminating a lot of repetitive tasks on behalf of the organization. So actually an intern built that app, right? The Alexa integration. It doesn't require the power of the model we created is that different people can create integrations. We are working with managed service providers who are deploying CloudGenix on behalf of their customers. Traditionally, to create all the integrations with their NOC and all their other servicing tools used to be an 18-month project, right? We've lit like tier 1 managed service providers in less than 3 months. And the reason is, and this is end-to-end, right? From first contact through contracts to integration with trouble tickets, automation, the end-to-end soup to nuts. Because all they're doing is coming and writing an app on top of the CloudBlades platform for all the integration into their own systems, right? So it is a fundamentally transformative thing, not only for the enterprise, but also for service providers, because service providers now can come in and say, I offer a base service with SD-WAN. I can offer an augmented service with managed security without needing to deploy hardware or software, right? A lot of service providers were faced in a quandary because the UCP hardware costs are just so enormous that they were not able to sell enough hardware that had enough horsepower to run multiple services at the branch, right? But once you have CloudGenix and the CloudBlades platform running in the cloud, you don't need more hardware in the branch. You need, less hardware is good. So, going back to this customer example, right? I just want to double click a little bit as we wrap up here. In their case, right? Because we had a lot of good questions come up through the session, and hopefully now it's a little more grounding when we look at this now. A Cisco router, a hardware firewall, a WAN optimization device running off of MPLS networks, a visibility agent, the server that runs both the retail point-of-sale backup applications as well as Active Directory DNS, and Call Manager Express. That was the retail footprint for them across the globe. And that footprint is now CloudGenix, right? You've gone from that to a single piece of software running in your branch. All the other services that you saw, they haven't lost functionality, they've gained functionality, right? They have the cloud-delivered versions of those services. Using Equinix for those stores that need maybe a little bit of extra performance, they get that boost for multi-cloud access. They get to use cloud-delivered security solutions, and they get to layer in incremental capabilities like DLP, et cetera, as and when they want it, right? They're not backlogged on anything. And in their case, it was a very transformative project to be able to truly adopt a cloud-based point-of-sale system, right? Because that now opens up for them the ability to have a much better data warehouse, data mining across multiple parts of their enterprise, integration with their ERP solutions. All of that came in because they eliminated the need for that server, which was disconnected from most of their corporate infrastructure and applications. As part of their future, right, they use LTE today with CloudGenix. As part of their future, they do plan to move to 5G, right? Which is an important thing, that transformation that we're helped driving, where while a lot of the industry conversation to date has been about the impact of 5G on the mobile user, we think 5G will have a transformative impact, including on the enterprise branch, right? Especially some of the service providers that we are working with who are thinking through the business model and the pricing model, but it's not by the drink. 5G offers you now capacity, latencies, performance that can change the game, right? In this particular customer's example, actually this was a couple years or maybe 3 years ago, in the middle of winter at one of their stores in New Jersey, it was a store attached to a mall. The primary WAN connection, an MPLS connection that is shared across the entire mall, it got taken out by a backhoe. CloudGenix had the LTE card or the LTE connectivity presented to us. Because our system is layer 3 through layer 7, we knew LTE wasn't completely down. The MPLS was down, but we were monitoring the LTE behavior. Now, the day before Thanksgiving, things looked really good. Lots of LTE capacity, good enough to run your store, etc. On Thanksgiving, on Black Friday, which oftentimes now starts the afternoon of Thursday, when everyone walked in, everyone walks in with their cell phones, right? Which has a material impact on LTE capacity availability. And that's when we started getting anxious. But the system is monitoring it not just at layer 3, trying to see if packets are going through. We're seeing that, you know what? Actually, if we tamp down on everything else and fight for our share of the last mile, we were able to get the credit card transactions out. So here's what happened. Their stores didn't have any impact, right? We tamped down on everything. Even the store inventory updates were tamped down. The point of sale updates were the only ones the credit card transactions were going through. No customer lines formed. The store manager didn't even notice that something was awry with the network. A whole host of stores in that mall with old style L3 routers and LTE cards connected to it, they actually were treated as down. People had to resort to manual paper-based credit card authentication, right? So that's a transformative power of both our autonomous SD-WAN as well as of our CloudBlade solution. So thank you all very much, right? It was a treat presenting to everyone. Yes. And if you have more questions, we're more than happy to take it.
For the service providers, do you white label the service for them, or you put
your
own brand?
Yeah, so we we work on a case-by-case basis, right? Depending on the provider, if they want to, in the case where they have a suite of solutions, right? And what they're trying to do is build a layer on top of our SD-WAN solution, we absolutely allow them to do it, right? And so in that case, we allow two kinds of white labeling, not only on the SD-WAN, but even on the solutions that you can deliver with CloudBlades, right? So there is one provider right now who is writing actually a pretty robust CloudBlade, because if you think about it, one of the things you can do with the CloudBlade is program an L3 through L7 device, right? 10 years ago, when the whole notion of SDN came about, there used to be lots of conversations about programmability. The question we used to ask was, okay, if you only are trying to program a layer 3 device, who cares? Who's trying to program a layer 3 device, right? We're a layer 3 through layer 7 stateful flow device. Oh, it turns out there's a lot of magic you can create at the branch if you can program that, right? Because now I'm trying to deliver interesting infrastructure services. So yes, there are people writing applications, and we are white labeled on the bottom. And the application is what they're presenting to their customer.
I saw a bullet UC as a service. Are we able to terminate SIP trunks, even analog, onto the CloudGenix box sitting at the branch?
Would you do it on the virtual?
You could. Well, that's been a hang-up for me with customers looking at various SD-WAN platforms.
Yep. Yeah. So what we've seen in our experience has been people have been doing UCaaS as a service back to the cloud, and not actually doing. They're trying to get away from that trunking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But in theory, you could. Like Kumar was saying, you could do a virtual device with, FXX ports if you wanted to, and do analog trunks in, and then have that provided into as a network service. It would provide it there, and then we could make sure the stuff gets to there if it's available, or route it back to the cloud if it's not. But in most cases, that ends up being kind of a
less elegant solution.
Less an elegant solution, yeah.
But if there are customers who are still using some of those older models of connectivity, I'm more than happy to engage.
Yeah, I'd be really interested to see some of the hang-ups on that, because the understanding the hang-ups there helps us understand why people are still hanging on to that. Because in most cases, when we've talked to customers, when we dive into the details, we end up finding out, well, there really isn't a good reason, and they can actually move. They're actually happier to move to this UCaaS one as long as we can provide, as long as you can provide that there's that capability for the other stuff. So.